Hi there, and welcome to Nelson Sim Racing. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be giving a rig tour, which is something I promised I would do when I hit 100 subscribers, which we've recently done. Very quickly, a little bit about myself. I've been sim racing for only about a year. I'm pushing 50 years old, so I'm an old man. I'm an average sim racer. Anybody who has seen my footage will know that I'm prone to mistakes. I've got reasonable racecraft. I just don't spend enough time practicing. I don't like practicing. I like racing. So if I feel I can get around the course safely, then I'm going to jump in and I'll just let the chips fall where they may. So that's me. What we're going to be doing here is getting a good look at all the equipment that I've built up, why I have it, how I use it, what I think of it. A few of the highlights we'll be going through will be the GSI Formula Pro Elite steering wheel that I've got, which is my very favorite steering wheel. We'll be looking at my button box, ancillary screens, the full triple screen setup that I've got. The whole works. So stick around, should be interesting. So the core of the rig obviously is the 80/20 frame. That is GT Omega Prime with integrated monitor mount and the quad screen upgrade. The seat itself is GT Omega. It's the, I think it's the XL one because I'm a big guy. It's adjustable, slides backwards and forwards, and articulates at the base as well, so you can tilt, which I think is very useful in a seat. I see lots of bucket seats, and they look great, but when you're a big guy or you're an old guy, getting in and out of seats like that just doesn't make sense to me. Other people are fine with it, and you know, you've got to do what you got to do. But for me, I like the articulatable seat. Again, GSI steering wheel, Moser base unit, button box from Custom Builder, iFlag from Etsy, Elgato Steam Deck, and we'll just go through it all in details. The PC itself, that's the brains behind it, is an Asus ROG Strix, and we'll give you some details of that. The PC I actually purchased originally for flight sims. It was I play, or used to play, IL-2 Sturmovik. Was a big fan of that. I had full VR rig. I've got multiple VR rigs, to be honest, and I really do like flying those warbirds. But then one of the guys I was flying with came on, said he was doing some iRacing, and I'd heard about it before. Didn't really know too much about it, but I had a look and was very quickly interested. I started by buying Assetto Corsa, and that was interesting, but I didn't find what I was looking for as far as online racing goes. So I signed up for iRacing. The rest is history. I bought a Logitech G923, bolted it to a desk, played with that for a few months, moved up to direct drive, and then started looking into building a rig, and here we are. So, as I mentioned, the rig itself is the GT Omega Prime, full 80/20 rig with the XL seat option. It has the integrated triple screen monitor with the quad screen attachment as well, and it's fully utilized. There's very little spare space on it these days. The seat is fully sliding and tiltable, so we can adjust it forwards and backwards where we need it, and up and down via the handle on the side if I want to lay down because I'm feeling, you know, super tired from all my racing. Now I've got to find that spot again. Right, there we are, I think. Yeah, it's real sturdy. It's very stiff. It's relatively easy to build up. The biggest hassle with it is the movement of the nuts inside the extruded aluminum. If you don't get them lined up very well, you can very quickly cross-thread them. And some of them are super fiddly, and you end up with your head underneath parts of the rig doing things upside down. But as long as you're sensible and take your time, measure, you may see footage out throughout this video. There's bits of tape still all over this rig where I used it for measuring out where portions of it should be. It seems to have worked out quite well. And again, I built it up over a very short period of time, bought the rig with a single screen because I had a 49-inch ultra wide. Then decided to go triples, extended to the triple, bought the quad at the same time, and I did for a short period have the ultra wide as the quad monitor, but that's just ridiculous. In fact, when I first went triples, I had the quad, I had the ultra wide in the center, and then I had 27s either side, which I don't recommend. You end up having to render for 3 49-inch screens and leave the edge off. And it just basically, it kills your GPU, even with a good one. Okay, well, that's about enough about the rig. Let's look into the driving surfaces. So, our base unit is the Moser R21 direct drive. Let me see if I can bring up a camera view of that here somewhere. You can just about see that in the background there. So that's the Moser R21 mounted to the GT Omega plate. 21 Newton meters of torque. That's enough for anybody. Some people say it's too much. I don't know. I run mine fairly consistently between 80% and 100%, and as long as I'm not suffering any injuries, which I had a shoulder injury when I first bought it and had to keep it low. But at the rest of the time, it seems to work out. High downforce cars, F3 and above, you're really going to feel that torque. Sometimes it's worth turning it down, but it's, you know, the higher torque, the more fidelity. So attached to the base unit, we have the GSI Formula Pro Elite. This is the Gomez Sim Industries. It used to be their flagship model. They've just come out with a Hyper P1, which is insanely good looking. But unfortunately, I bought this about a month before that came out. So, you know, Yabu sucks to me. Again, there's 1,000 buttons, rotary dials everywhere, funky switch. These are all push buttons. Four paddles, so 2 shifters and a clutch paddle on the back. Behind the wheel. So let's go back and have a look at the wheel. Behind the wheel. You can't quite see that, but I've got the AH50 adapter from GSI and the Moser quick release. Let's see if I can take this off and show. So there you go, there's the AH50 red anodized, because you'll see I've got lots of red accents on here. And then the Moser quick release. One thing I'm ashamed to say, and don't know if I should have known about, but I will admit to you, dear viewers, the quick release is mounted 180 degrees to where it should be, so that's where Moser wants it to be. That's where I've got it. So every time I mount the wheel. If I switch to a Moser wheel, I have to recalibrate for 180 degrees. It's not a big deal. One of the benefits of direct drive is obviously you've got infinite variability, so you just recalibrate. But there you go. Something I should have looked into, something I should have tested. You know, follow me as much as you want, but possibly more as a cautionary tale. What else is there to know? There's your releasable USB cable that comes with the GSI. We have that then attached into a USB extender cable with a powered adapter. One of the key things that most people will tell you about these GSIs is they're very power hungry, and even if you're in the latest USB ports and directly connected to the PC, you're not necessarily going to get enough power to keep the screen running properly, and what you get is a tearing where it goes out of sync. It's pretty easy to solve. You need the USB. You need the USB cable with a powered adapter. I got mine from Amazon. They're fairly easy to find. It came with the power adapter. It's a USB into USB, if that makes any sense. And it supplies the power. Very simple. Other wheels I have. I am currently the owner of a Moser FSR, although I am selling that, which is the Formula wheel with the screen installed. It's a real good wheel, but I'm not a big fan of the way the dash screen works and how configurable it isn't. Real quick look here. This is the Moser RS wheel. The D shape with the Alcantara, the V1. And I also have the Moser GS wheel as well, which was my first Moser wheel. Let's get a quick look at that. Moser GS wheel, version 1. And again, this is a great little wheel, but I wanted a dash because I was feeling fancy. But the other thing is this just comes up, it feels slightly small in my hand, and it always did. The FSR felt slightly bigger, and the RS obviously is considerably bigger. So something to think about. A lot of people complain about the GSI and they say the grips are too big, but I think they're an absolute delight. I really do. Probably the next purchase will be a GT wheel from GSI, I think, because awesome. Moving downstairs, what we have is the Moser CRP pedal set, the load cell. It's their, you could arguably say it's their flagship pedal set. It's certainly the most expensive one they make. 3-pedal set. Unsurprisingly, accelerator, brake, and clutch. We have done a review on that, and you can find that. I'll link to it down below if you're interested. It's a good pedal set. It's a bastard to fit onto the rig compared to some of the others I've previously owned. The Thrustmaster TLCM set, which is very, very simple, and the Simagic P2000, which was arguably even easier. Those come as three separate. The Simagic P2000s come as separate pedals that you mount to a plate, which you then just screw straight into the extruded aluminum rig. Whereas the base plate for the Moser, you have to have hands. Let's go back to this screen. You have to have tiny, tiny little hands that can fit inside the base to get the screws in place, and then you can't see where the screws are going into the nuts, into the aluminum, and it's a very painful experience. I had to take the whole pedal base out of the rig so that I could slide the plate in sideways into the aluminum profile. Sorry, I've lived in America for 14 years, and I'm still somewhere between aluminium and aluminum. So I figure I'll upset everybody by just saying both of them. What else do we have? Yeah, as I mentioned, I previously had I've previously had the G923 with the Logitech pedals. The Thrustmaster TLCM were my first load cell pedals, and they were great, but I wanted something more fancy. Let's say fancy. I wanted something more fancy. So I bought the Simagic P2000 Hydraulics, and they're a great pedal, but I don't know if I was unlucky or they just have some quality issues, but I had a lot of problems with the accelerator pedal where it wasn't registering a full press. It was sticking. It wasn't returning. And rather than be a sensible person and warranty and fix and all that stuff, I decided I was going to buy the Mozar because I'd already decided I wanted a shifter, so I needed a 3-pedal set. And Moser had just come out with the HGP, which has the auto blip function, and I just like the idea of something, slightly more vertically integrated. So I bought the CRPs, and I'm very happy with them. I haven't had them very long, but long enough to know that I like them. So they're going to stay on there for a while until such point as force feedback pedals become affordable, probably. Moving back up to the screens, I have a triple screen setup or a quad screen setup, but I have a triple screen setup for racing, which is based around the Samsung LC27 G7s. So those are the 2.5K 240 hertz screens, and I have those obviously set up in a triple setup, and I use the Asus bezel-free kit. It doesn't work perfectly on the curved screens, but it works well enough that I don't notice. I mean, I can't see the bezels, and I don't notice the slight imperfections in the fit. I thoroughly recommend it. There are easier ways to do it if you can lay your hands on screens with the Fresnel filters. You can rip those out and make your own. There's lots of videos to tell you how to do it. But they fit mine quite nicely again. So, yeah. Up top, my fourth screen is an Acer 34-inch ultra-wide. I think it predates all of the other equipment. It's quite an old one. But it's high-performing, and typically I use the top screen for my OBS and Discord, which I run almost all the time. On my head, I am wearing the Audio-Technica BPHS-1 headphones and mic, which is then cabled into the Elgato Wave XLR unit, and from there into the PC. So I use the Wavelink software to mix all the sound before it goes into OBS. So OBS just picks up a single stream, and I mix all the sound before it gets in there, and I do that via the Stream Deck, which I'll get to. Moving on to the brains of the operation, which certainly isn't me. The PC that powers the sim is, I think I mentioned, an Asus ROG Strix, the model number GA35DX. I can't remember all the original spec, but what I have in it at the moment is a Ryzen 7 5800 X3D chip. The GPU is a 3090 Ti. It's got 16 gig of DDR4 memory. Probably should use a bit more. And I think I'm up to about 4 terabytes of storage. Things I like about it. One of the best things I think about the PC, and this is a really minor thing to a lot of people, but when you run a lot of stuff, it's important to me. It has fantastic USB ports. They're all over the box. There's 4 on top and about 8 on the back. And I use all of them bar one plus an 8-way hub. I think I've got something like 22 or 23 attached USB devices. And I accommodate all of them fairly simply because of the way it's laid out and the way it's presented. It's relatively upgradable. The 3090 Ti is the third graphics card I've had in there. I think it came with a 3080, and then I jumped up to a 3080 Ti and then a 3090 Ti. I've put a couple of new NVNs in there. There's space for more RAM. I've replaced the CPU. There's space for more full-size hard drives if I want to go that way, which I probably won't. But things I don't like, the cooling on it is terrible. I mean, the CPU is liquid cooled, and that's great. But the in-case flow is fairly poor. Ever since I've had it, I've run it open, took the glass panel off. That seems to solve most of the issues. If you've got good airflow in the room you're in. If not, then you probably need to make other arrangements. There's space on top for some exhaust fans, but there's no adapter plate for it, so you end up probably having to bungee it on there with cable ties, and that'll make it look like crap. Not that you can really see it, but there you go. I just hate the thought that I would know it was there. So that is most about the PC. As far as input output, I've got a Logitech Stroud Edition small form factor keyboard and a Logitech mouse. Nothing particularly fancy. The cameras I run are Logitech, so this current camera is a Logitech 4K and camera 2. That's an older 1080p camera that there. See my gross fingernail, and now I've made everything out of focus. They work well enough. They work even better when I get them set up right. So I think this is the first time I've actually recorded anything in 4K on this camera, whereas previously running it at some God only knows resolution because I'm an idiot. The second camera that I keep bleating on about, again, that I'm using, and I move it almost every day because I can't figure out where I want it to be. Come on. I wish I could make it focus. That's on an articulatable arm, which I bought from Ulanzi via Amazon, and it's great. If you need a way to mount a camera in any number of ways and make it movable, it's a great system. It's not perfect, but it's great. All right, let's go on and talk about some of the accessories. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure that we'll call the shifter an accessory, but there you go. It's still a control surface, I suppose, but yeah, we have the Moza Racing HGP H-gate shifter. which I recently did a review on. It's a great little shifter. It would be ideal if it was a combination of sequential and H-gate. It's not, but you know, I've got the paddles for that, and I don't do drifting and rarely do any rallying, so not a huge deal for me, but certainly something to think about if that's what you're into. Both SimMagic and SHH have dual action shifters, so probably those are worth looking into, or you can just go the whole hog and buy extra. But as I mentioned before, I'm very low on USB ports, so I don't know how well I'd be able to do that. Anyway, moving on, we have a button box, which I can't remember the company I got it from. It was some guy in Poland who makes them, and they're really nice. Metal rotaries, real clunky switches that you can feel. Let's see if I can get some footage of it. Find my mouse. Let's show this. There you go. That's how easy this camera is to move around. So there we go. So we've got switches for ignition, something that I can't remember. There's your pit limiter with warning light. That's actually the power. You can see engine start. You've got a four-way arm there that I use for the menus. Black box adjusters, rotaries. These two rotaries are push button. The rest, the other four rotaries are just dials. And then 10 push buttons. As I say, I'm very, very happy with this. I looked at lots and lots of options, and this one really seems to have come up trumps for me. Another interesting piece is the mount, which I got from Apex Sim Racing, is the best button mount I've come across. Button box mount I've come across. One of the main reasons is it's very easy to lock it in place. Other button box mounts I've come across, they just don't lock into place. They're too easy to move, and if you want to push buttons, you know, it's just like you can lock in the button box to the mount, but then the mount doesn't lock in place and pivots on the 8020 rig, which is super annoying. Moving on, the second screen that you may have seen beside me on my right in some of my videos, that's just a Dell Chromebook that I bought refurbished, and I just use the browser function to pull up a SimHub Dash across the network. It works great. I use it for fuel calculations mainly. Not too much else to say about that. It sits on a mount, again, I think by Apex Sim Racing. It's an iPad mount it has a phone attachment above it, but I don't use that portion. It does intrude slightly to the right-hand screen, but not enough to cause me any problems. It's very useful, as I say, for the fuel calculations. Just a nice big screen that I can just glance at, pick up the numbers I need, and then get back to racing. To the left of that, I have the iFlag system, which is the 8x8 matrix that you can see flashing just on the right-hand side of the screen here. That tends to tell me what gear I'm in. It's got proximity alerts, flag indicators, things like that, all built in, programmed by SimHub. I bought that via Etsy a while ago. They're pretty easy to make, but I'm too lazy for any of that. Over to the left of the wheel, I have the Elgato Stream Deck Plus, which I use for controlling most of my OBS stuff. I don't do too much clever with it, just change cameras and remix the sound on the fly. Given the nature of the content that I'm making, I don't think it's a big deal. It does what I need. It makes life very easy for me for mixing the sound while I'm going, particularly when I am racing in crowded lobbies and I'm listening in on Discord and things like that. I can switch the sound pretty easily there. The actual box itself is mounted inside an Apex Racing carbon fiber box and then attached to somebody's button box mount, and I can't remember where I got that from. It's not great, but it's good enough. Behind me, you can just see I am sat upon a Next Level Racing HF8 haptic feedback chair pad, which I've had for a few weeks now, and I quite like it. It's not super high fidelity. The software it comes with is pretty lousy, but you can set it up through SimHub and it works quite well through there. It does, I think it works really well in ACC. It gives very good feedback in that, which is ironic because the force feedback in ACC is not great. But the haptic feedback is. iRacing, it just all feels a little bit weak. I've tried dialing it up a bit. I've got it on max gain, and I'm still fiddling with it. But it's better than not having haptic feedback, but it's not as good as having butt kickers. One thing it does give you is a very light massage, which is quite nice. Speaking of butt kickers, I also have those, and you can see those down at the back of the rig. I've got a left and right configuration attached to the seat posts. I do have 80/20 mounts to move them out to the corners of the rig, which I intend to do when I cease to be quite so lazy. The butt kickers are an interesting thing. They do give good immersion. They give good feedback. They're a bit of a pain in the arse. The software's a bit crap. Arguably, the better way to do it is to install a sound card and run it all through SimHub. But ButtKicker will tell you that it's better to use their software. I don't know. But the software's fiddly and annoying, and has a tendency of losing all your settings and you have to start again. So maybe they'll eventually get their hands around that. I don't know. Yeah. So moving on, I think we'll take a look at some of the small bits and pieces I've got knocking around the rig as well. What else do we have to talk about? Well, one of the things you'll notice as we sort of move around the rig, you'll see the bright red cable management clips. I picked those up from Etsy. They're all 3D printed. I just bought a big bag of them. And they work real well. They slot into the profile and they go in and out pretty easily. They're easy to get the cables into. And they're relatively secure, and I haven't had any break yet, despite the fact that I fiddle with it all the time. I do have some Velcro wrapping around some of it as well, where I'm just running out of space in some of the heavy consolidation points. The headphone mount for my cans is or something else I got from Apex Sim Racing. It's a little carbon fiber mount, bolts onto the side. Ridiculously too expensive. You can get them for next to nothing, or you can print them yourself. It's not rocket science. But again, it was carbon fiber. It looked good. I bought it. The glove ring was another Etsy purchase. Again, it's in red. And it's 3D printed, goes straight on. Didn't cost very much. And it's always there, and it's a great way to stash the gloves. Speaking of the gloves, these are Moradness. I've got several pairs of Moradness gloves. I've got some full-length gloves, and I've got these short ones, and I prefer the short ones. I've got several pairs of the Moradness gloves. These are the shorthand ones. There are full-length ones that go up past your wrist. I tend to prefer these ones. They're quicker and easier to get on and off. The other ones tend to be a bit warmer on your wrist, I think. And if you wear a watch, they're a real pain in the arse, the long ones. So that's something to think about when you're purchasing them. They're not cheap. There are cheaper gloves out there, but they have great grip. They're very comfortable, and I can operate the Elgato screen, which has a swipe panel, using these gloves, which is very important. And when I say very important, I mean not in the grand scheme of things, but in my little world. Important to me. What else do we have? You can see a little itty bitty fan next to the base unit, which is about $10 from Amazon, and is a lifesaver. Can't really show it. We'll see if we've got some footage of it. It's a 4-speed fan. It runs off the USB, plugs straight into the monitor, and just clips on. It's fantastic. It's keeping me cool right now as I talk. Other than that, the racing shoes I wear, Puma Speedcat Ferrari edition, I thoroughly recommend them. They're about $100, but you can often pick them up in the sale. They make various manufacturer versions. There's a Sparco collab. I think there's Porsche versions. There's definitely BMW, AMG Petronas. There's other Ferrari ones. I've had these a while. I wear them all the time when I'm racing. There's good feel in them. There's good grip. It's a rounded heel, which is important. The rounded heel, which is important for how it sits when you're on the rig, on the accelerator. And I say there's good feel in it. My accelerator pedal is very light, and I can still feel it through the shoe. Thoroughly recommend them. Anything more expensive than that, and I think you're just throwing money away. There probably are cheaper ways to do it, and I know lots of people playing socks, and I could never get on with that. It just feels wrong. But yeah, big fan of these shoes. Okay, well, I think that wraps up basically everything that we've got. So now I'm just going to give you a few of my thoughts on life, and then I'll let you go. So let's get into it. So it's undeniable that I've spent a lot of money on this. I don't care to count it all up. I've called it out for you, but it's low 5 figures, easily, which is a ridiculous thing for a sim, which is really just a fancy name for a game. Spending money, however, does make you faster. A lot of people say it doesn't. It does. It does. Direct drive gives you more immediate feedback than a belt-driven wheel. Higher torque direct drive gives you more fidelity in that feedback. Triple screens gives you better visibility than single screens or wides, ultra wides. In pedals, Hall effect sensors are more consistent than potentiometer pedals. Load cells give you more feel and modulation. High-end load cells are more adjustable. Hydraulic pedals feel more realistic, although they have their own downsides. But it all adds up, and it does make a difference. Better wheels have more features, more buttons, more dials, visibility, LEDs, more adjustability, more sensible. They feel stiffer, they're more consistent. And if you're an average driver or a poor driver, this all adds up to time. Particularly the pedals, but not only the pedals. And I am the most average of average drivers. And I need the help. A quick driver with average gear is always going to beat me. Always. It doesn't matter what equipment I have. They haven't invented the equipment yet that allows you to outspend a quick driver. I'm still looking for it, and you can bet your life I'll get it if they do. But it's not there yet. But again, a tenth here, a tenth there, particularly with the pedals, it matters and it adds up. If you've seen me chasing the time on the Crosscar Challenge, you can see how vital that tenth here and tenth there is, and how infuriating it is if you can't achieve it. So yeah, do I regret the money I've spent? No, not at all. Would I encourage other people to spend this money on it? No. No. How much you spend, that's your business. The only advice I'll give you as far as spending goes is spend money freely and vigorously to be comfortable in the rig. Don't skimp on the seat. It's what you feel most of. Get something that's adjustable or make something that's correct. If you're building your rig, get some measurements. Find a way to copy the measurements. There are reference diagrams on the internet. Find that geometry and get comfortable. It took me a while to find the correct geometry. When I first started racing, I was getting terrible pain in my shoulders. And it turned out the wheel was just in completely the wrong spot. And it may not be the same as driving a road car, but that's a good place to start and just adjust it from there. Everything else about what you should spend, I think there's only two considerations. Can you afford it? And does it enhance your experience? And that needn't necessarily make you faster. Again, my iFlag makes no difference to my speed, but it's fun. I enjoy seeing it flashing down in the corner. It gives me peripheral vision to know what gear I'm in. I see the yellow flags. I see the warnings. It improves my experience. Your opinions may be different, and you've got to do what's right for you. So I thoroughly encourage you to look at all the options and think really hard before you spend the money. Again, you've heard I've had 3 sets of pedals. I've got multiple wheels. And I could have saved myself considerable money. You know, I had the ultra wide. I've gone triples. If I could do it all again, I'd get different triples. I think I'd probably buy 32 flat triples because they're easier to deal with. You give up a little tiny bit of the side, but you get much better fidelity north and south. But again, I don't regret. I would just do it differently. I don't know. Maybe that's a contradiction, but there we go. So that, I think, is all of it. If you're still with me, then thank you, really, for watching this video all the way through. And thank you for any of my other videos that you've watched. Thank you if you're a subscriber. If you're not, please consider making yourself one. It's the easiest thing in the world to do, and it means the world to me. Thanks if you've liked the videos, and huge thanks to the people who comment, because that's my favorite part of it, I think. I love chatting to you. If you've got any questions about the rig, throw them in the comments. I'm happy to answer the questions. I'm not going to price all this stuff out. You can find it on the internet. It's not rocket science. None of it's free. I've paid for all of it. You can do the math. I don't want to. But yeah, I appreciate you all, and I look forward to hearing from you. And in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again.